Welcome to our panel discussion on how to accelerate a career in sales, marketing, and services. We've gathered here today to shed light on the unique challenges and opportunities professionals in these fields have today. I'm Jayati Dwivedi, your host, moderator for the panel today. I would like to introduce myself as a sales leader in the job of creating awareness about Philips, its culture, and our commitment to building an inclusive work environment. Most people know us as most probably a electronics company, a kitchen appliances company, a bulb making company, which we have been, but we have been innovating ourselves. But over the past decade or so, we have really transformed ourselves into a focused leader in health technology. We're proud to say today that we call ourselves as a healthcare technology company. Let me welcome our panelists. We have Kshitij Kumar, who heads the sales and services for health systems business across Indian subcontinent. We have Deepali Agrawal, who spearheads business marketing and sales for a personal health business. We just spoke about healthy living there. And we have Amit Dalal, who leads our key strategic accounts for the Indian subcontinent. Thank you all for joining again. Deepali, I'm proud to say that you've been recognized amongst 40 marketers under 40. It's a privilege to have you at Philips. You've worked across multiple MNCs, you've worked across Indian startups in the consumer space, and now in health and health technology. You've traversed and you've really handled multiple ranges of complexities and challenges. I wouldn't really put it as challenge, I would rather put it as complexities in your roles. Tell us a little more about the time when you were leading a team, most of them being much older than you, and many of them were aligned to a union. What a tough environment that must have been. How did you step into it? How did you take up that challenge? Give us some nuances of what happened during that period and what you felt at the end of that journey. Over to you.
Firstly, thanks a ton, Jayati, for that very illustrious welcome. And also, good morning, everybody. Quite thrilled to be here and very happy to share whatever little I know about traversing a sales and marketing career. But to the specific question that Jayati asked, it's almost a 2-decade-old story, and I was a rather young business manager at that point in time. It was one of my first few assignments in a large multinational, where I was leading a large team of people. And like Jayati said, most of them had worked longer than I had lived. A large number of them were a part of a unionized force. And true to form, I think they really knew their business, and they knew what they needed to do. And it was a rather complicated assignment when I saw it from the outside. But I think a few things that helped me succeed in that assignment were, number one, really being yourself. And I think sometimes women, when we join sales assignments, we feel compelled to play like a man. I don't think you need to. I think you just need to be yourself. And what I realized was two things. One, a large number of them who were fairly senior, very experienced, really loved the authenticity, the empathy, and the connection that I was able to form with them very early in my stint. And that helped me in a long service that I had on that assignment. Because while they knew what their business was and how to sell, they really did look up to me for a lot of brain power that I could bring to the team, but equally the connection that I could form with them and their families, and how we could build a culture which was not really only numbers focused, but also very development focused. So that was one. The unionized force part, I think, really for me, it was a very eye-opening experience, because the thing about unionized force is that they get very little of their compensation as base salary. Large part of their compensation comes from incentives. And if they don't make their incentives, I literally had I had a case where one of the unionized team member came to me and said, I've not been able to pay my son's school fee because I'm not making my incentive. I think these are real stories which also bring a lot of humility to you to say, look, numbers are numbers, but it's also about the lives of your team and their families. And I think the way we went about it is to say there is no bias that I come from, unionized or non-unionized. You are still my team. And as a collective, we have to achieve and we have to make sure we take care of each other as we do that. And I think some of those very personal beliefs that I have as a human being and as a professional really helped me do exceedingly well in that assignment for the 3 years that I did that. So that's pretty much what I would say, Jayati.
Brilliant, brilliant. I really admire what you said. Authenticity, empathy, being yourself, not really like playing like a man. Oh wow, what a thought there. Um, in all of this, and when you spoke about this team, you showed a lot of empathy. And I think all of these are such critical components of being what we do on a daily basis at our work, be it in a sales role or otherwise. Um, Thank you, Dipali, for sharing that. Uh, we'll go a little more into understanding what goes in to be successful in any of these roles, and our focus is again sales, solutions, services, all of this. I'll now turn to Kshitij. Kshitij, you've been a sales leader, a business leader. You've influenced and witnessed the evolution of the healthcare business itself in the last 2 decades or so. You've worked in different markets, in different geographies, cultures. You know, you've really helped to grow, strategize business models, and during this entire process, you've impacted people's careers. You've really built people's careers. Uh, what in your outlook do you see a good gender diversity bring, not just to the organization, but to the business itself that you have been leading, to the sales side of the business, to the people in that team, and to the individual and yourself? Tell us a little more about what is it that brings value to the organization as such. Thank you.
Thanks, Jyoti. It's a great question. And let me start by saying, putting up the first big why in place. Why at all do we need to focus on this challenge at an organization level? There's a well-researched report from McKinsey that found that the companies with gender diversity executive teams were delivering 21% above average profitability than the companies with a lower gender diversity. And if I were to talk about companies like Philips, which focus so much on innovation, I'm happy to share findings by another research done by another reputed consulting firm, BCG, which found that the companies with an above average diversity in leadership had higher level of innovation revenue than companies again with a below average diversity. So clearly, Jayati, in my view, at an organization level, this needs to be addressed. Incidentally, when we think about gender diversity, we sometimes assume that it is only an issue in India. Actually, gender diversity varies across the world. If you look at Nordics, such as countries like Norway, Sweden, Finland, they are known for their high gender equality, and diversity at workplace is taken for granted. While if you look at US, which has made significant progress in the last few years, it is still there is still a significant gap in leadership positions on gender diversity. Before moving to India, personally, I was working in Middle East, and gender diversity in workplace in Middle East varies depending upon the country and the industry. Personally, I have experienced Saudi Arabia, which had offices that had a dedicated earmarked areas for women, including entrances to those areas. And now I see a Saudi Arabia which is lifting up its ban in terms of driving of women, etc., etc. Those things happening out there. Overall, if I look at it through my international career, I've seen progress being made across many countries, but there's still a long way to go achieve true gender diversity and inclusion in workplace across the globe. At Philips, I had an opportunity to really work with some outstanding diverse talent. And I'm delighted to see my colleagues from the commercial side, Deepali and Ami Dalal, doing great work in their respective fields that they have chosen for themselves, and now helping many more potential leaders by being on this panel and sharing their thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Kshitij, for that insight. Um, if I really look back at myself, I've worked for more than 2.5 decades right now. And when I started my career, I saw the diversity within India. And today, when I look back, it's a different game completely. It's a completely different game. We're striding forward. And I'm so proud to be part of this organization and this country to see the stride that we have seen. There was a time when I was in sales and I was the only woman in a team of 30, 40 people. From there, we've migrated to a place where we see that it's close to 30% or even high in Philips. So that's an extremely good um, uh, uh, mark that we've moved across in the last 2 decades or so. And you rightly said that we have a vested interest in that. The organization has a vested interest because there's clear research that says that this increases productivity, this increases the way of doing business in terms of bringing in new ideas, new thoughts, and so forth. We'll move into another area right now quickly. Um, Dipali, I'll go back to you again. The other day, when we were preparing for the webinar, this I think last Wednesday, you were on the road on way to the airport, if you remember. Um, we've had we've heard about biases a little while ago, that there are biases that sales is all about travel, and you were traveling to the airport. And we've heard that since it's all about travel, women cannot. Tell us more about a day in your life of a marketeer with a P&L responsibilities and how you manage it. Dipali, yours.
Yeah. So, Jayati, I think, look, I think not all days in any business are going to be the same. It's not like you only travel and it's not like you're only in office. I think business is about a balance of multiple things that or multiple skills that you need to bring on the table. And for that, I don't know if it is different for man and woman. Of course, physiologically, sometimes jobs are demanding, and that's okay. But it's also so rich in experience. You meet people, you go to different places, you meet customers. The richness of insight that brings can never be paralleled by being in just the confines of your office. But equally, there are times when you really need to be in office and sort of deep down, and that's really where your teams on the field do the job of meeting with the customers or being out there selling. And I think and therefore for any role to succeed, and at least that's been true for me, one, you really need to have a team that's united, and that requires work. But sometimes it's also about the organizations that you work in. I mean, for example, Philips, right? Um, you know that there are travel policies, there are travel arrangements which do make travel a little less tiresome or stressful than otherwise. You do know that you have the comfort of coming back at times and hours that are reasonable, especially if you're a woman traveler. So multiple of those things also, I think, then make the job a lot more palatable and a lot more easy. But there are no easy answers there. I think, I mean, man or woman, you do need to balance the time with customers and consumers with the time back end in the office with the rest of the team and with your P&L. That's that's probably been my experience.
Thank you, Dipali. If you really again see closer, the airlines industry in India, we have one of the highest women pilots globally, and pilots all the while travel. So we've got to break some of these myths, that women cannot. I strongly see that each one of us will again play a role to say that these are just myths. We all have to travel for our work, whatever it is, and we've got to manage it within that, and we can do it. Ami, you've really moved from a point where, as you were talking to me the other day, you resisted a career in sales, as very simply put. You thought it was too complex. You thought it was too much of a man's world, most probably. And today, if you really look back, you've been leading strategic key accounts for Philips in the Indian subcontinent. You've been awarded multiple times for how you've done in this career. What changed your perspective about sales? What made you come into this? And what helped you to advance your career here and get those accolades that you've got in the last few years?
Thanks, Jayati. With that question, you take me a long time back and you remind me that I was an individual who's very different now. I would sit in my college campus and, tell my friends that, dude, the last thing that I will do after I move out of my college is sales. I would end up I wouldn't mind doing drawing classes for kids around, but I wouldn't get into sales. And this is a real conversation, in the fourth year of my biomedical engineering days. And the next step that we did in our eighth semester was sell our resumes, right? And I call it selling resume now, but that's exactly what it is. We used to go on trips to events like Hospi Medica, which are annual medical equipment events, and go on stalls and give our resumes because that's what we want after we come out of college. uh, uh, so we used to be in different spirits then, that I want to be a researcher, I want to be a scientist. That's what I wanted to be when I took biomedical engineering as my graduation subject. And when you come to the reality, I wanted to stay home and I wanted to do a research job, living with my parents in Ahmedabad, and that's not very close to the reality of today. So that with those aspirations, I kind of got offers from two organizations, homegrown Indian organizations, one in sales, which would allow me to go home to my parents every day in Ahmedabad, another one in research where I wanted to go, but that would mean me pushing out of Ahmedabad and living alone in another city. And that's where you go back to the basics of thinking, that what does travel really mean? Living out of your own in a different city versus meeting customers and being able to go back home. And I took a choice then, Jayati, that I would not want to leave my parents' house. And I took the sales role in Gujarat, in a maternal infant care space, which brought me very, very close to the infants, with the mortality rate for infants being very, very high in our country then versus now as well. It also brought a new perspective of gender diversity playing its role at that moment when the babies are born. And but mind you, going back to the thought with which I stepped out of college, I left that job in 2 months. And I kind of went back to giving the MBA entrance exams, getting admissions into the colleges. And parallelly, I also got an offer from a global company for sales. That's when, that's what brings me to discuss here with the group, is that's when my perspective of sales changed. How did I get that job offer? Was being recommended by the only order that I took in my first 2 months of sales career. That in respected doctor of the doctor community, he had recommended me in for that multinational company. And that's when my entire perspective of what we call sales changed. It's not sales only, it is about human connection. It is about connecting to the customers. It is about making a change in life of those uh, you know uh, patients or infants with whom I was dealing then in the hospitals. And after that, I kind of did not take the MBA college offer. I took the sales role, and I have never looked back. I have always found something new to learn. And I think sales is not gender related. It's in our minds. It is as similar to any role that we have out in the market. It's just about the perception and the perspective, and these are the two words I love to use while describing that journey of mine. So thank you, Jayati, for asking that, and that kind of really connects me back a couple of years back of my life. I would have never imagined being a strategic business leader in sales when I ventured out into this.
Glad to hear your story. It's been a lovely story. It gives so much of courage to all of us, irrespective of gender. Coming from a city like Ahmedabad, wanting to be there and then moving across, traveling across, taking up leadership roles, building your career. In the process, the part that you really called out was human connection. I think more important is having a purpose in your career and how you impact people's lives. I think that's what is more important. It's not gender at all, whatever the gender, irrespective. I think being empathetic, which a little while ago again we talked about, doing that human connection, understanding people outside of the organization, bringing in that outside in perspective is what's important wherever, whatever we do. Yeah. Thank you, Ami. That was really an excellent insight you gave of coming from a small city and then building your career there. I'm sure by now many of you must be thinking, what are the roles that Philips is talking about? What kind of roles and what kind of growth opportunities over there? The roles can be really varied. By now, you've assumed you know what I take care of. I said I sell careers, Philips careers. I bring the best people into Philips. Um, I lead the talent acquisition function, so I have a direct line of sight to most of the roles that are there. So the roles can be really varied from e-commerce marketing manager to OEM quality manager to area sales managers, category marketing managers for different modalities. In fact, I was just listing down some of the roles that we've done last year. They've been business marketing managers, account managers, FSCs for different modalities, CT, MRI, and so forth, strategic key account managers, clinical apps, a lot of clinical app specialists that we look for, niche roles in demand and supply area, and so forth. So multiple kind of roles in the entire gamut of it, in different portfolios in different business areas. What kind of a growth opportunities there in each of these roles or in any of these roles? Kshitij, you've been here in the organization for a long time. Can you tell us a little more about some stories about how career growths have been in any of these roles?
Sure, sure. I think, Jyoti, that's a great question. And I would look at Philips as a place where people can really build careers. And I can probably start with my own story, right? So I joined this company of 12 years back to start public-private partnerships. Every 18 months to 24 months, the company has been throwing at me a new challenge and saying, like, can you do this? Can you do that? So I navigated my path from starting from public-private partnerships to starting off Philips Capital in India to saying that, okay, you've done Philips Capital in India. You have also been, I've never done a government role, a B2G, a business to government kind of a role. The company 3 years that tell we need somebody coming with a fresh pair of thoughts and pair of eyes and thoughts out there to drive business to government. So that's what I did as well. I did all that stuff for the first 5 years in India. And so like, you've done enough of it in India, why don't you do and move to Dubai and start doing something which you have not done. So that gave me an opportunity to work in a very different cultural environment. Very different context in which you work out there. Next 4 years, we're doing different kind of things out there. Again, just before COVID, lucky to be back in India. So starting 2020, I came back to India to lead precision diagnosis and connected care businesses for India. And today I lead a team of 600 people. So all I can say is like, and my story is not unique, just to be clear. Okay, this and my story is closest to me because I have been through that story. But I know of several of my colleagues who have traversed this different story. Where Ami, for example, who's there on this one. Ami had a very different story. She joined us from as a regional manager Today, she's heading the strategy key accounts for across India in less than 3 years. And that's been the story. So if I talk about Yashika, who's now based in Amsterdam, she joined us as a pricing officer, just two people, then moving into sleep and respiratory care business, going through the ups and downs of that business for 2.5 years. And now she's a category manager in Amsterdam. So there are enough and more stories. It is depending upon your attitude, your willpower, your resilience. This company will give you the opportunities to really make it big. It is for us to grab the ball and run with it. That's the way I see it, Jayati.
Brilliant, brilliant, Kshitij. In fact, I've seen so many people in my stay in Philips who've moved from a India role to a global role or a regional role in this space. That's such a good story. We have a
If
few
I may,
questions that are also coming up. Yeah, yeah, sure.
uh, Jayati, I just wanted to add something, right? And what Kshitij said triggered something in my mind that, when you, and it's also something similar to what Ami said, right? When you leave college, you have a very fancy view of how your career will be. And you've literally, and I think most people literally plot it out, saying this is exactly how it will go. And I think all of us here can agree that then life happens. And then you realize that the plan that you put was probably never meant to be. But what happened was probably even more beautiful and even more enriching. And I've seen, at least for myself and many, many people that I know, that the only things that help you succeed is the curiosity and the openness, along with the commitment to do your very best. And you will never know everything that is to do in a job really well at the beginning, but as you move forward with the right temperament and the right behaviors, I think you will be able to succeed, and there will be a learning curve, and some days will be good and some days sure as hell will be bad. But I think it's the behaviors and the temperament that carry you through, and the openness to say it's okay, there's a different challenge, it's a different learning curve, maybe something's good in that as well, versus sort of being a bit pedantic and fixated like we were in college to say nahi yahi karna hai, and we have to do it like this only. And I think that's sort of one of the other things I've realized about navigating careers and potentially also being successful.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. We have a very interesting question that has come up. How do you achieve sales target? Very simple question. Looks like a very simple question. How do you achieve sales target at the initial stage of your career? I mean, initially when we just jump out of our college and into a sales role, those first 2, 3 years, like you rightly said, Dipali, all kinds of imaginations in our mind, and then there's something to achieve there. How would you put this, any of you?
Okay, let me take it a shot, Jayati. There's only one way that you will meet your sales targets, guys. Just focus on delivering value to the customer. That is the only way you will be able to do that. Okay. Focusing on your self-interest and saying this is the product that I want to make it happen for them, or this is what I want to do, will never achieve you sales targets year on year for sure. You might be able to do a hit and run sometimes, but if you want to be great salesperson throughout your career, it has to be about what value do you bring in to the customer. How are you solving his or her issues? How are you kind of creating more for him or her, depending upon the scenario that you are in? That's the only way to do that. Now, that fundamental, if that is clear, then comes your skill sets around it. That do you have the right territory mapping? You have the right customers to go after? Do you have done the right targeting out there? All those kind of things fall in out there. But those I would say like at the nitty-gritty levels, first thing is to remember very clearly, it is about your ability to solve a customer issue because the customer is going to pay you. Your internal folks, your internal processes never pay your salary. It is always coming from the customer. So that's the most important thing that we have to bear in mind. Are we adding value to the customer?
Excellent. Excellent. I think very related to this, we have another question, similar question. What are the competencies? What do you see as the are the success mantras, rather. I would rather put it as a success mantra for being successful in a sales career. And you rightly said that understanding what is it that the customer is looking for and then delivering, and then beyond that, of course, going deeper, segmenting the market, and understanding what kind of what kind of product lines or what kind of solutions are really required for each segment. Come back to really deep diving and saying what you each of you think is the success mantra for a job or for a career rather in a sales domain. Would you like to take that and tell us one or two top things that come to your mind?
Yeah, thanks, Jayati. I think the way we coin the term success mantra is for me, a little retrospective view. I would kind of take up my story from where I left it. When I took up sales, I don't think I visualized what I wanted to do to succeed. I think what stayed with me to core till date would be, what is the one skill or the top 3 skills that I want to learn in the next 2 years of my role. Uh, and I kind of learned that, achieved what I decided when I began, and then I started deciding in the first place, or finding out in the first place, what do I want to learn next. To give you an example, I was the product manager in my first job. I was so excited of learning that product, and I really enjoyed it. I learned the product and I went and met the doctors and communicated that knowledge. And while I was doing that in the first 2 years, I realized that, okay, I have learned this product. I have kind of, met every user in 2 states of India. What do I do next? I mean, I have done this. I don't have new challenge now. I went back to my manager. I said, I want to do more. And then I got an opportunity to do the same job, expanding my geography. And I then started realizing the cultures and the differences on the utility of the same product in one state versus another. And how can I bridge the gaps? How can I kind of use the good things in one state, communicate it to the other users, and make the optimal utilization of that product. And after 2 years, I was like, oh, I know now 8 states, I know the product, what can I learn more? I went back to my manager then and I was like, I think I know everything here. What can I do more? And what I was given is a larger set of products. I used to handle 20 products then. After that, I got 120 products. And my manager was like, uh, go and sell 120 products in 2 states. So the point that I'm trying to kind of come to is, I had, drilled down to 2 to 3 skills that I wanted to learn, whether it was learning products, learning business segments, learning geographies. Pick that skill that I want to learn, learning to manage a team, adding up to that, take a new role, achieve that, and then ask for more. And I think with that approach of where I feel my comfort, the organization investing on me, and I performing and going back and asking more, that's what has brought me here, when I look back retrospectively. And I would call that my success mantra, if I may, say it that way.
Excellent.
Just to build on what Kshitij and Ami said, Jayati, I think no parallel for, of course, meeting consumers and customers and adding value, like Kshitij said. And of course, the whole learning spirit and sort of trying to do your best by finding diversity and then commonality. But I also think probably the third vector to this is, sales is like a team sport. It's practically like football if you think about it, right? There are different people in the team who need to do different things. And I think for me, what has really worked is to get the team right. And when you say the team right, it's not only about people right, but it's about the interconnections and the culture and that right, because that sometimes creates magic which cannot be explained on Excel sheets. Um, and you know, it's an interesting story that I want to tell. Uh, I did mention early on that in one of my sales assignments, I work with very senior people from an experience perspective. But I think the culture that we managed to create, which is sometimes hard if you think at it from the outside, because it's assumed that sales is such a man's territory and it's such a cigarette whiskey territory, and you can't, as a woman being sort of a teetotaler, sort of enter that territory and create the connections. But I realized that when I left that role, 40% men on my team were crying, and they were like, you know, you really literally were like a mother to us, and here I am, this 25-year-old girl with like 50-year-old men, and I'm like, wow, what could have I have possibly done so right? And I realized that what they found in the transparency, the authenticity, the objectivity that with which we were driving the agenda, backed by this whole culture of I'm there for you. If you fail, you don't fail alone, but if we succeed, we all succeed together. I think that's such a powerful culture to develop in any sales role in the group of people that you're with. And sometimes that also requires you to have great mentors, right? Because as young professionals, when we enter sales assignments, true to form, we have our own notions. Some of them are pedantic notions. But what really helps is sometimes having mentors. And I mean, in my Philips journey, I've been pretty fortunate to have leaders, bosses, and mentors who have helped you sort of stay the course even in tough times. So I think it's obviously the aspect around consumers and customers. It is about your own learning journey, but a large aspect of success in sales is about team and the culture that you're able to develop.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. I loved it when you said sales is a team sport like a football, and putting the right people at the right place, putting the right culture there, working on all of it together. We, as a team, you arrive at a point, at a destination. Um, I mean, with that, and you also talked about mentorship, and I see some questions which are gearing towards mentorship. And Kshitij, I'm going to turn to you for one of these questions. And I would like you to look at this question as if you are really coaching the person. You know, I started my career as a technical person in my respective fields. After 8 years, I moved into sales now. I'm struggling to connect with the people as well as finding the mapping. What advice can you share?
Okay. Let me start by saying that it's not unusual. Okay. So whoever has asked this question, rest assured, this is not something which is only happening to you. It happens to a lot of people who are very comfortable with the machines, and then they are put into a situation of sales where beyond the machines, you have to deal with people um, who will be human beings, who will be I would say like not absolutely programmed like a machine. Okay, so that's piece number one, that you should get some comfort that it is not not a place where a lot of people have been already. Okay, what can help you to really get out of this situation is one is open yourself to learning. The reason why you would have moved from technical position to a sales would be, I'm guessing right now, I do not know enough about you right now, but I'm guessing is to really expand your horizons, which means that you are agreeing yourself and making yourself vulnerable to an area which is far more risky. You could have continued being on the technical side forever, right? You made that conscious choice to move into sales. Then it is about saying that, yes, I have made this choice. Where do I, where can I find help? And I think, and that's a place where I go back to what Deepali also mentioned, find a good mentor to help you in this journey. Okay, there will be people who would have successfully transitioned from being a technical people to becoming more generalist and sales included. Uh, Probably find someone out there to be able to help you that one. That would be piece number one. Second would be do a lot more introspection, take a 360 from people. Where is your strength lies? Okay, it's very easy for people to figure it out. Where does your weakness lie? So within sales, the good part is the targets are given, but the style with which you can reach those targets could differ. For example, somebody is very who might not be technically very strong is asked to sell. That person actually leverages on the strength of human relationship and the commercial part of it, maybe, right? While if you're on the technical side and if technical is your strength, then you can use that as your pillar of strength. So don't feel that you are missing that part because you are not able to connect that part. You have your intrinsic strength, and sales provides you that opportunity to achieve the target based on your strengths while you're working on the areas of development. Those are the two things I will say. Find yourself a mentor, do an introspection, and build on your strengths.
Thank you, Kshitij. That was actually that such a direct kind of response that you've given to this person, whoever it is. And I agree with you completely that you must have seen so many such situations, so many of your team members coming back to you and asking exactly the same question, possibly. Um, we have another question, quite an interesting question. What are some of the challenges you need to overcome while switching from sales from a particular industry to a completely new, unrelated industry? Who would like to take this question? Dipali, would you like to take this?
Sure. I mean, I've worked now with a few employers, and I have also moved through different sales and marketing assignments. So I think again, any assignment, whether it is in sales or anywhere else, and in any industry, I think there are, to me, two or three things that make you succeed. One is really to Kshitij's point, right? Knowing what you bring to the table and doing that exceedingly well. And being clear that what you bring to the table is valuable for the assignment that you're going to do. I mean, you can be a great singer, but if you're walking onto a cricket field, you're not going to be useful. So it's really about what strength you bring and how you're going to make it useful to the assignment that you have on the table. That's number one. Number two, and I think that's so true for people who move between industries. Sometimes when we move between industries, we think we know everything coming from the experience of a previous industry, but the humility to say that the new industry is going to be different, and I will, even if I am a leader or even if I am at the top, I will have a learning curve. For example, when I moved from consumer health to consumer health technology, there was a huge learning curve for me, even though I was walking into a domain where technically I knew the skills. But to apply the skill to a different context and a different industry requires a learning curve and the humility to go through that learning curve, right? So that's the second thing I would say. And the third thing, I mean, there is no replacement or parallel to building connection with people you're going to work with. And it's not only about sales, it's also about stakeholders, your predecessors, people who enable you to do your job really well. So while sales is an important job from a people management perspective, but we don't do sales alone. We need the support of the finance team. We need the support of the marketing team. We need the support of the operations team. And how do you build these connections and networks, particularly in a new industry and in a new environment? I think to me, probably are the three big things to do when if you want to succeed in a transition, either between industries or between organizations.
Thank you, Dipali. Thank you for that. I want to quickly talk about a little about how my career has been. I haven't yet told you all. The first 10 years of my career has been in sales. I started my career in an industry which is completely male dominated. This was long back in the steel industry, iron and steel industry. From there, I wanted to switch into a completely unknown industry for me at that time. This was IT and IT technology industry. I remember the first couple of months that I moved into the IT technology industry, I would come back home and cry because I would see that everybody else around me, especially my colleagues, my teammates, knew so much about the product, knew so much about the technology part of it because I was just novice over there. And then I sat back and really said that I need to build my relationship with my team, my organization, my function members to really learn And believe you, on the third month, I was actually doing sales call with the team members. On the third month, when we got one of the big through up there, learn as much, pick it up from all your colleagues as much as you can, identify the people who really can bring in that learning to you, and then just go ahead with it. I think that's one of the key things to really go for it. Yes, Dipali, I moved from a sales background. I was in international sales after that for many years. And due to certain reasons, I moved into another portfolio. But today, if I really look at my career, though I'm part of HR, I look at it as a salesperson, because what I do is actually attracting talent, the right talent for ourselves, building that brand for ourselves and attracting talent. That's how I see my team and my role here. You know, yeah. We move to another question. Uh, what is the importance of pre-sales in this industry? Would one of you take us through what is pre-sales all about? What does it include? It's an open question. Whoever wants to take it up. Ami, would you like to, or Kshitij? Yep.
All right. The question is, so pre-sales is basically a backend function for us who connect with the customers over the phone to understand their requirements, as well as, give the solutions that we have to offer for their requirements. Looking at that question, the the function is present in our business today. It is there as a preliminary connect with the customers, that these are the options that we have to offer, and this is how it could solve your problem, and then to be taken up by the connect on the field with the customer. So I'll just go back to the question of what is the importance. It is the bridge which connects the organization to the customer instantly by the time a person is able to physically travel and go and meet. Because today healthcare is developing in tier 3, tier 4 at a far more faster rate as compared to the cities, which is how it used to be 10 years back, if I may put it. And not only healthcare, I would say all the industries. So I would say that pre-sales plays a key role in connecting the organization to the most rural part of the country and ensure that the best technology reaches there. Kshitij, if you may want to add, or Deepali, that's my perspective.
Okay. Thank you, Ami, for that. We have another interesting question here. I think this will be one of our last questions before we really close this discussion. What is the impact of AI like Chat GPT on relevance of sales as a career? Kshitij, shall I turn to you for this?
Let me take that one, okay? Because this is not the first time that I'm hearing it. Oh, AI will take away my job, that job. Radiologists probably are concerned that they might be not having the job. I think, and I think this is a very important one. There are three elements around it, okay? Will the job change? The answer is yes. Will the job evaporate? The answer is no. Because the fundamental need of satisfying customer or the consumer need will be there, and you will need people to be able to do that. What would that mean essentially is that the way you are selling today will change. And clearly think about it, okay? 15 years back, when the customer wanted to buy something, they wanted the seller to send them a hard copy of a brochure or anything like that, right? Today, that information goes over prior either on an email. What has also changed is earlier, the customer would depend a lot upon the vendor to supply that information. Now, what happens today is before you go and make the first call, the the buyer has already done partial of his research and probably telling you a few things that you also probably did not know about your product. So what has changed is not the sales per se, but the way you sell. And I don't see that AI or a chat GPT, etc., taking away that job. What it will definitely change is the way you sell, because at the end of it, sales, and I think that's been a theme of this conversation as well today. People buy from people. That's a reality. Our brains are still 95% governed by the primitive brain, the lizard brain, as we call it. That is what is done. Most people take emotional decisions and then justify technically why they bought that one. And that's not going to change at least for a million of years, right? That's not likely to evolve very quickly into a modern brain out of that reptile brain, as we call it. So that's not going to change. I think that your way of selling is going to change. That's definite. But sales is not going to get evaporated.
Thank you, Kshitij, for that response. It's adaptability actually, and that's so true. What an enriching conversation we had. I'm sure we wouldn't get this kind of an insight into what goes in a sales role or in a solutions or in a services role. We'll not get this kind of an insight anywhere else. I can assure you that. I'm really glad that we had this conversation to break all kinds of stereotypes, all kind of myths that we've had in our mind. And I think it's time that we really progress forward, look into it as any other role, make it much more inclusive. Each one of us are committed to it, towards doing it. And it's now up to us to really drive the change here. I'm really looking forward to having more such sessions in the future, having more conversations around it, breaking all barriers, learning from each one of you as to how we should progress in a sales role forward. Thank you for this extremely enriching participation from you, Ami, Kshitij, and Dipali. Thank you, audience, for taking out your time today, spending this. Reach out to us anytime. If you have any further questions, we're always there. We would like to guide you wherever, whatever you're doing, in whatever profession or whatever industry you are. That's how we take our roles. That's how we would like to help you in this advancement of your career. Thank you. Thank you for the people who have really helped us to put this together. And have a brilliant day ahead. Have a brilliant weekend ahead. Thank you.